Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Ellipse Unsealed. That's Ellipse Solutions podcast to talk about everything Dynamics 365. And up to now, we've been talking a lot about Summit and about our own Tech Connect. But today, I'm excited because we're moving on into some different realms of the ecosystem. And we're here with Sam Bush to talk about marketing and how it affects or how it's affected by the millennials who are stepping into those buying roles. Real quickly, I'm Bobby Small. I'm one of the podcast hosts. We're missing Savannah today. She's not feeling well and didn't want to cough all over the podcast, so she's going to step out. But Sam and I are here to keep you entertained. Sam, why don't you introduce yourself and what you do for Flowcast?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. First off, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So I am Sam Bush. I am a senior partner marketing manager at Flowcast. Flowcast, we're a fintech solution who helps automate the close. But I'm mainly focused on partner engagement, partner demand generation, and then I just like to nerd out about all things marketing. And this past year, I've really kind of blossomed into a couple different topics that are really, really interesting to me. And that's kind of where I came up with some just heavy research around marketing to millennials and buying committee changes post-pandemic and all of that stuff. So I'm excited to chat today.
Me too. Yeah. I mean, even though I just getting into marketing in the last couple of years from kind of a professional standpoint, I've always kind of enjoyed that. My last job, I was an end user and I was on the executive committee. So kind of involved in a little bit of everything, including some of the marketing efforts. And so kind of saw some of this on the forefront, even there, like, it was an apparel company and I kept talking to them about, the idea of, putting thought around how people are buying, because they were still sending reps out with these big racks of clothing and it's like, man, I think we're going to miss a trend if we're not careful and how folks are buying now. They don't necessarily want to see you. They're, especially now with pandemic, stepping in, but even before then, it's like, I just want to do this online at, I just got done, partying at 12 and I'm ready to start ordering some shit, whatever that, this is the time I want to do it. And so just kind of really paying attention to those trends. So I'm excited to hear to hear more about the topic. And you said you've done a lot of research and stats. Why don't you talk a little bit about kind of what that looked like or, what you found out?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to talk a little bit like pre-pandemic and pre the horrible C word. And then we'll talk about after and kind of some of the stuff that I found out. So in previous life, so pre-COVID, we used to see buying cycles for B2B purchases specifically. So B2B software, services, solutions, those changes in buying cycle would change every 10 to 15 years. So think about the journey of someone who, starts their career and 15 years later, they're still buying and sourcing things the same way they had in the past. But then there's this evolution of either technology or something in the economy that's changed that drives that new function in the buyer committee. So I got really, really fascinated by a couple of things that were said to me, which we'll get into in a second later on, I think. But some research that I did was really around 2022 data points from multiple different sources, but all of them said that 60% of your B2B tech buyers, your buyer committee, are millennials now. So that can be your influencer.
That's a big number.
It's huge. It's huge. And pre-pandemic, it was less than 30%. So when you look at that change in just like less than 3 years, there's so many assumptions we can make about why those changes occurred. Whether it is millennials bored at home and we're like, let's fight and get that power position or that bigger, step in our career, or people are retiring because it's like, well, COVID's happening. I'm at home. I don't really want to do this anymore. Or you have
time to go out.
Yeah. You have what you said before, which is like people are used to taking their show on the road to sell, even in B2B tech. I mean, how many appointments did you have to show the solution in person, right? So those skills don't matter as much in a COVID time. So I think a lot of that is kind of what evolved some of that change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think something else that's super interesting about millennials is only 84% of them don't trust conventional advertising. So they don't trust the Google search. They know that you're paying for their love. They know you're paying to get a reaction, and they're tired of it.
Yeah.
We've been sold to our whole lives as millennials. I am an elder millennial, but I am still.
For people who don't know, that's like
Yes.
83 to something. What's it's it's about like the oldest millennials are in the 40s now.
No, they're 42 now.
42. Gotcha.
Yep. So definitely a little bit of a jump there. But something else that I found really interesting in my research is 30% of that. So you've got 60% in your buyer committee, and then 30% of those are the financial approvers. So they're the ones who sign the sheet, which that is up 50% year over year. So 2021 to 2022, 50% growth in the number of signers, official signers. It's nuts.
Yeah. And these are folks that grew up with technology at their fingertips, basically. I mean, they grew up in the space where things are moving really fast in a technology sense.
100%. And I think it all comes down to when you're introduced to technology, how you use technology for your benefit. And I was in some discussions at Community Summit, actually, and someone said to me, well, isn't everybody a digital native now? And I just remember looking at this person and thinking, if that's what you think, then we've got to do a lot more work here. Like, do you think you're a digital native? I think you're 74 years old. You think you're a digital native. You can't be a digital native if you didn't grow up as the technology was emerging.
Right.
You were already an adult in the workplace, Right.
I mean, I grew up, in a time where, didn't have a cell phone until I was 30 or so. It was pretty late in life when I got my first cell phone out of necessity. So yeah, definitely didn't grow up a digital native. I adapted. And I wonder what the percentage of people, like, I'm 55. So what, in this age range, I'm an early Gen Xer, how many of me are adapting to the digital platform as quickly as I did. I was like, yeah, definitely bring on the tech. I love it,
Exactly.
Or you were kind of, no, don't. I'm not ready yet still.
Yeah. I'll do a quick little plug. So me and Mary Miller at Paytrace are working on some just research and understanding on that side of it for next year. So you'll see us in the Microsoft community doing a couple speeches about marketing to millennials, marketing to all generations, marketing to how, generations consume content differently and all that fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. But it's definitely became something that just because you learn to adapt in the digital world, you're learning those skills, but they're not inherent to you yet. But I do think millennials are changing the way everyone is doing their buying cycle. We've kind of taught everyone that we don't have time to get on the phone, and you shouldn't either yet. You need to do your research first. I think it's kind of coming full circle to the generations who are used to, let me call my friend Bob at Ellipse and say, I need this, and this, without even looking.
It seems unnatural now to call somebody. Like you get them on Teams. Hey, do you mind if I call you real quick? You have to. It's like a pre-call approval before you can call somebody now.
Exactly. Or like elder millennial here, my phone is on Do Not Disturb every minute of the day. The only people who can get in contact with me are my direct, immediate family, and that is it. Because I don't want to be bothered with anyone.
Yeah.
And if I call someone, I do the same thing. I'm like, is it okay if we talk in 30 minutes?
Right. I need a written approval to get a phone call to you.
If you need a minute to think about us having a call, we can do 30 minutes from now. It's silly. It's silly. But millennials are also the generation that everybody makes fun of because our parents made our doctor's appointments until we were in our 20s.
My brother is a millennial. He's 12 years younger than me. And my mom, definitely, it was a handhold all the way through. I was like, get out. And then he gets that, that pass.
Yeah. And I think some of it's personality type as well. Like I have a younger sister who's also a millennial, and she's the one that's like, Mom, make the appointment. And I'm like, don't you dare call on my behalf. I can do it,
Right,
so there's some of that comes into play too, that I think there's not a blanket statement on like, do this to market to millennials and you'll be good to go. It's like, you still have to take into account human behavior.
That's a good point. And I'll ask in a second just some of the things we should be thinking about. But
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that connection, because that's still important when you're marketing in general. I don't know if you know Candace Edelin at all, online or in person. She's really good. I met her in Denver about a year ago at one of our local meetings, and been following her since. I just love her take on that human connection point of marketing. You know, we've got a job to do out here if we're doing like you and I are channel, alliance partner manager people, and or if you're BDR, whatever it is, when you're out there making relationships, it's important to not just go into it with like some canned, out of the box, just thing that you should make the connection, make them strong. So does that still resonate with millennials, you think? Is that something that's just kind of tried and true?
I think so. It's kind of twofold for me on that, because I think that's personality. Like for me, when somebody approaches me, say at a trade show or even online, and they just come out of the gate, I don't know them at all, and they're like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Let's schedule a call." I'm like, "No, don't talk to me." But if they come up to me in person, I'm way much more likely to say, "Yeah, let's chat now in the moment," than I would be if you came to me like on LinkedIn. Like Candace has a great understanding of LinkedIn prospecting, but it's not like for me in my demographic and then personality type together, I don't respond super well to that because I don't have a connection to that person. So I need to know, like when you and I met, the first thing we bonded over was our love of our brand colors. And it was like, now we're friends now because we've got this in common, and it's just goofy and fun. And doing business with you would be easy because it's like we already have this rapport. So for me and my personality, that's what makes sense. But when it comes to millennials, they want to do it all online and then decide to come to you. So you have to give them avenues to find you and find the human qualities in you, in your brand, which I think we do great at Podcast. And so quick little plug. Our brand is very much like, you go to our website and the people you see in the photos actually work with us. They work for us, and they're our founders. They're our friends. They're, at the trade show, you see them as well, because they're a part of our brand story. Their casual nature is us, which I think resonates to a millennial so much. Like millennials want to be a part of something. They want to feel like they've impacted something, whether small or large. And even just looking at that and saying, I'm working with an organization that has a brand impact on their peers, I think can be really, really strong for a millennial audience.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you touched on something that's important. I think old school, and I've been in business for a long time, and I feel like old school says, hey, there's a business you, and then there's an other you. And I've always tried to blur that line to no, I know there's a line I don't cross certain times at business, but I'm pretty much try to be me all the time. So to your point, if I'm out there putting myself out there in whatever way, that hopefully that's being picked up for those folks, that they know who you're dealing with when you pick up the phone and talk to Bobby. It's going to be that goofy guy you saw at the conference, or that that big head you see on LinkedIn looking at you from his profile picture, whatever it is. This is a genuine look at who I am. So
exactly,
so I think that's important.
So important. So important. I remember early in my career. So I've been in my career 13-ish years. So not long, but feels long sometimes. But in the beginning of my career, I wore a suit to work at an ad agency for a while. I dressed up. I, was very much like, hello, how are you? And something switched in me. I had a great mentor in my mid 20s that was like, your real self is actually way better presenting than this version of your buttoned up self. Like, that's not who you are, and it doesn't fit very well. And I was like, well, that's mean. Like, why would you say that to me? And then I realized he was saying, be your authentic self. It's stronger you than this covered up version. And I think that's what's really important, especially to a millennial, to talk to anyone who's not a millennial. The authenticity needs to be there. You need to see them as a human, not as a salesperson who's actively engaged in a sales cycle with me.
Like you said, you're not interested in that, that out of the box, canned message about sales coming at you without some personal idea of what's going on.
Exactly. I will say I got the greatest like BDR outreach for a marketing tool a couple days ago. And it was, she literally has been following me for a while and never like sent the message that was like, if you have a few minutes, I'd love to chat with you about personalization software. She just followed me and I was like, whatever, I'll follow her. She sent me a note and in it was like, congratulations on your speaking session about this, this, and this. I hope it went really well and I'd love to talk to you about it. And oh, by the way, I saw you looking at this on intent platforms. If you're interested, call. If not, all good. And I didn't hear from her for weeks later. And I was like, no, that is perfect. But what happened was when we were looking for personalization software, one side of our business was running the gamut for it. And I happened to mention my boss, like, hey, this lady reached out to me and she's like, oh my gosh, we're thinking about buying them. So I messaged the lady back. I said, you know what? I think you're talking to my boss. Like, let's just connect the dots and we're signing a deal with them here in a couple weeks. So
awesome.
I think adding some just different ways to do your outreach to a millennial is really helpful. And it's not one tier, one person, multi-channel. It's multi-touch on different people in the buying committee.
And I did this, and this was not a millennial thing, but I tried to change the narrative when I was at Uray at this company, and I had worked up to, I was a VP of information systems. I was getting probably 15 to 20 calls a week from vendors back when they did just call, right? Back in the old days, pre-COVID, when you just call people. And you know, it's try to pick the phone, and because I'm a nice person, I know that you've got a job to do. You know, everybody's out there doing their job. But then it's like, hey, can I get a minute of your time? And that minute turns into at least 10. I mean, there's never a minute of your time. And so I changed after, you know, not too long. I was talking to a friend and we were just kind of chopping it up about this. And we kind of came on this idea of, I'm just going to put a message on my outgoing, you know, voicemail that says, hey, you know, I really appreciate what you do in life. You know, I know you've got to call me, and that's cool. But I can't pick up every call. So if you send me an email, I put my email on there and you tell me why you're emailing, and then I will respond to every email, because I can do that in a few minutes, and I can make a quick decision, and I can do it on my time. And I tell you what, I mean, what it did is it helped to put anybody that was really serious send an email, which is great. And then I was able to connect with them on a better, more direct way. And then, you know, it's like, we don't want to waste each other's times, but I'm ready. I'll contact you. And in some cases, there were a number of people that I still stay in contact with from opening up a dialogue that was more meaningful than maybe the 2 or 3 pressured minutes we had on the phone, where I felt like I've got to get off and they're trying to get out this, you know, this word vomit of everything they want to tell me in this 2 minutes. And so changing the narrative from the buyer side could be something to think about for folks out there. Don't be afraid, you know, to tailor it the way you want, and make bold choices to be honest and forthright with folks, because again, I appreciate and truly appreciate that this person has a job to do. They're out there trying to support their company, and I'm happy with that, but I just, you know, had to kind of make a decision to save my time.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to that authenticity. You said like, hey, I value your time and your call, and the real me wants to answer this call, but I don't have time. So if you take the extra step, then we'll work together to see if there's something there. And I think that, like, again, authentic, raw, taking some choices and chances can be generationally impactful. And I think, like, no matter, you know, your personality and any of that, that's a great tactic for anybody to think through.
And you find your people that way. I mean, it's like the people that resonated, and we again, I found great relationships out of that in the channel. So
such a good
cool
idea.
Question: Are memes dead in the marketing world?
Okay, this is going to be controversial because the company I work at does use memes sometimes. I think it depends on your audience, and I think it depends on who your brand is. So if you are a service provider or a VAR in the community and you serve to construction workers and manufacturers, and your brand voice is, we have a solution to serve you, we're here to help you, come to us, I'd say probably not. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think your audience is looking for a joke in that situation. Now, in a Flowcast world, we basically say, like, we have a TV show. We're very alternative, okay?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. We have like a podcast that a couple of our team members run that just make goofy, fun things. And for us to post it, it's like we already are kind of not making fun of accountants because 75% of our employees are former accountants. We're basically saying we
Right.
get paid by having this joke, you know? We
Right.
don't use
Yep.
half as much as we used to. We did, I would say about a year and a half ago, we had like a Friday meme a week. And we like will create them in our community all the time and share them out and stuff. But I think you've got to know your audience to know what you're like, what avenues resonate with them. And if you notice your audience is, 70-year-old who lives in the suburbs, who works in manufacturing, maybe they want a joke. Maybe they need a joke. But what is your brand? And how does your brand personify? I think that's almost more important than the tactic itself.
It's a good point. Do you think millennials are, in general, say what again, like we talked about, I think that every person is different. Know your audience, but in general, do you think millennials are still on the memes, or are they? I just see less memes. I think
we're off the memes. In my opinion, we're off the memes. We're on to we're on to the short, quippy, like one-liner in a tweet, way more than we are a meme. The first meme I ever made, I'll tell you this. I made a meme when memes first really came out in like 2010. I made a meme in 2010, 13 years ago. They cannot still be relevant 13 years later. Nothing that is a fad is popular that long.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think about GIFs?
Yeah. I mean, I use this more than I use memes right now. Yeah. I definitely use.
Around less time.
Yep.
Everything has a season and a wave where it's a tactic, it's a fun activity. Like Reddit will never go away. Everyone loves Reddit. But Reddit had a shining moment that it was like, if your brand is not on Reddit or you're not engaging on Reddit, you're missing something. But now Reddit is, if your audience is there, you're there. I get on Reddit as Flowcast sometimes just to peep and see if we have any customer stories in there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's fine.
And I'll engage and I'll say, hey, can I contact you? I have your email. Let's get a customer story, But
that's awesome.
It might not make sense to hang out on Reddit. And it's not something that is a trend now, but it's got its own audience and its own following. It's got its own little ecosystem. And that happens to be accountants sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. What about let me ask this. Anything we missed on marketing to millennials? Any important piece as you're out there, people, tuning in saying, hey, I just want to take away to maybe upskill my marketing enhance my marketing efforts.
Okay. I'll give you a couple quick highlights. Have a self-service website. Have the website basically do the whole thing for you. Have a chatbot on there. Have a resource center. Name everything in clear conversation. Maybe give me a demo in detail that I can click through instead of have to listen to. Self-service website, number one. Number two is use customer proof more than you use like a data sheet. Give me somebody else's point of view on your software that I can identify with. I would much rather trust a random person on the street who says the food's good in there than I would the owner saying it's good in there. And it goes the same for B2B. That's two. Three, I would say probably don't just use traditional advertising. Think of out of the box things that you can do to get in front of your audience. Google ads are great if you have somebody who's amazing at managing them, which luckily we do. Shout out James. But not everybody has that or the budget to have that. So think about, do you want to do some display advertising? Do you want to leverage LinkedIn? Do you want to do more brand awareness than you do, demand gen tactics? Those are things that millennials are going to follow a lot more than they are when they Google search closed software and they see Flowcast, closed management. Ad.
And is there advertising? Is it reasonable to advertise on TikTok, or is that a place that you would put a lot of effort in, or is that just
yet? I think it's on the table though. We haven't experimented with it yet, but I will say, as a millennial, I have gotten ads for like Mutiny, which is the personalization software I was talking about, on TikTok, and I'm like, they know where I'm at. They see me.
Yeah,
So
it's an interesting ad space because definitely not traditional, and certainly like for our company that would be a weird place, but it's almost like a soft space to do it. So it's like, hey, the person's over there, rolling through their TikToks, and just boom, 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 and then all of a sudden, whether it's an ad or it's an actual TikTok that we've done, that hey, this is a fun company, maybe I should check them out in my business world.
yeah,
Kind of
from
moment.
a recruiting perspective, we're exploring it. We hire a lot. We're growing 100% year over year. Not this
Yeah.
year, but no one is. But we're trying, right? So always
Yep.
hiring. And I think it's a great place to showcase your brand
Yeah.
and really your culture, even remotely.
Your personality. Yep, you bet. So what's the future then? So we've got millennials. Any thoughts on what alpha generation? What's coming in next? Gen Z.
So
We're going.
Everyone says Gen Z, but my prediction actually is Gen Z is going to completely shake up what they do with their careers. They already have shown us that. They're all going into influencing. They're going into farming is really high in the Gen Z because they're trying to get back to things that kind of millennials lost with the technology boom that we had. So I actually see millennials sitting in this seat for a while, and the generation after Gen Z starting to take the moves next, actually, from a business perspective. I think we'll see some Gen Z go out, but I don't think they're going to enjoy the workforce the same way that we do in B2B tech.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a good point with the with that kind of that almost like an abandonment of tech. It's like, hey, I'm over tech. I grew up with it. It was in some cases caused headache, heartache, all these different things in school as I went through, and then now I'm just done with it. I want to run back to just like organic farming up in Vermont somewhere. So totally makes sense.
I think there definitely, like I said, will still be a decent amount of Gen Z in corporate America, which I don't consider us corporate America, but other people probably do. But I think, that's kind of how I predict. But I know full well the boom that millennials had post-COVID on buyer committee and cycle is not likely to happen with Gen Z.
Yeah.
There's no way.
That makes sense.
So we'll see. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I love it. Any parting words on marketing? Anything exciting going on for Thanksgiving? We got that coming up.
Thanksgiving for us. Wow. Okay, so I have a huge family. In my Thanksgiving will be about 30 people at my parents' house. Yeah, we have 3 turkeys, sometimes 4. Very crazy time. So it is not
buying a conveyor belt. You just grab a piece of turkey as it goes by. Just 4 turkeys.
Yes, there is a specific way you have to walk through to get your food.
I love it. Yeah, if you break that, there's always that one uncle that's going to break that rule though and cut and go the wrong way and say, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Uncle Tony, you're screwing it up, man. I unfortunately am just getting over the COVID.
Oh no!
So I'm isolated for now. Although I'm feeling better. I think I can come out of isolation tomorrow, but then I'm still kind of in that zone of having to wear a mask, and so I'm not going around anybody. So it'll be a really quiet Thanksgiving. Watching the parade and we always watch the dog show. I like the dog show, so we watch
That's the best part of Thanksgiving, in my opinion. I love the dog show.
I love the dog show. I just started watching it. I don't even know when. It was like I definitely grew up a football person, so it was weird. Just as somewhere where the person it was their house and they weren't watching football, and I was like, well, they're watching the dog show. That's what we get to watch.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is kind of fun. I can get into this.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on. We certainly missed Savannah today, but Sam, it was awesome to talk to you about marketing and Flowcast. I think I love your product. I love like you said. You mentioned the commercials. I love the branding. It's a fun company, and look forward to seeing you again at an event somewhere in the future, and hopefully, maybe a podcast or 2 down the road. So,
of course. Well, I got 13 events planned for next year that I'll be at, so I'll see you at one of those.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm near that level, but boy, now I've got goals to attain to.
I don't know if it's
I got to get to the drawing board, find some more events.
If anybody knows what happened to me after Summit, it's not goals, but little sidebar for everybody that was there.
I love it. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your holidays, and we'll talk soon.
You too. Sounds great. Thanks again.
Yep.